My name is Harold. For 37 years, I drove a school bus in a small town you've probably never heard of. I earned minimum wage, wore the same 3 uniforms, ate lunch out of a brown paper bag. But I became a father to 70 children that society threw away. Kids nobody wanted. Kids the system gave up on. Kids the world forgot. This is my story, and I need to tell it before I forget. I started driving that bus in 1962. I was 22 years old. Just got back from 2 years in the army. Didn't have much education. Dropped out of high school to help my mama after daddy died. But I could drive, and the school needed a driver. So that became my life. Every morning, 5:30, I'd start that engine. Pick up kids from the hollers, the trailer parks, the farms, rich kids, poor kids, didn't matter to me. On my bus, everybody got a seat. Everybody got a good morning. Everybody mattered. I married my wife, Betty, in 1964. We wanted children. Lord, did we want children. But it wasn't in the cards for us. Betty couldn't carry. We tried. She lost 3 before the doctors told us we had to stop trying. I remember holding her while she cried. Both of us sitting on our bathroom floor at 2 in the morning. And I promised her, I said, Betty, somehow we're going to be parents. I don't know how, but we will. I had no idea how true that promise would become. It was 1967, winter morning, 18 degrees outside. I pulled up to this house. Well, you couldn't really call it a house, more like a shack with holes in the roof. And there was this little boy, maybe 5 years old, standing in the yard in a t-shirt, no coat, no shoes, just standing there in the snow shivering. I got off that bus and I said, Son, where's your mama? He looked up at me with these big brown eyes and said, She left yesterday, said she's not coming back. I wrapped that boy in my jacket, put him on the bus and drove straight to the sheriff's office. Called Betty from there, told her, Honey, I'm bringing someone home. That was Tommy, our first foster child. He had cerebral palsy, mild, but enough that the system kept passing him over for adoption. Too much work, they said. Nobody wants a damaged kid. Well, we wanted him. Betty and I, we didn't have money for fancy therapy or special equipment, but we had love, and we had time. And you know what? That boy learned to walk. Learned to run, graduated high school, got married, gave us 3 grandchildren. Tommy wasn't damaged. The system was. After Tommy, the social workers started calling us. Harold, Betty, we've got another one. Nobody else will take her. She's got Down syndrome. Or, this one's been in 7 homes already. He's got behavioral issues. Behavioral issues? You know what that means. It means he's been hurt so many times, he doesn't trust anybody anymore. Means he's a child acting like a child who's been through hell. Betty and I, we'd sit at our kitchen table at night, our little 2-bedroom house. I'd bring home my paycheck. $287 every 2 weeks, and we'd figure out how to stretch it. Could we take another child? Could we feed another mouth? Betty would look at me and say, Harold, we can't save them all. And I'd say, no, but we can save this one. So we'd say, yes, again, and again, and again. We learned to make 1 chicken feed 8 people. Learned to shop at the thrift store. Learned to cut hair at home. Our kids wore hand-me-downs. We never took a vacation, never had a new car, never had cable TV, but our house was full of laughter, full of homework at the kitchen table, full of birthday parties with grocery store cake, full of kids calling us Mama and Daddy. We were rich, just not in the way the world measures it. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you it was easy. It wasn't. There were nights I sat on the porch and cried. Nights I wondered if we were crazy. We had Sarah, born with spina bifida. Doctors said she'd never walk. We carried her everywhere, changed her diapers until she was 12, drove her to physical therapy 3 times a week, 40 miles one way. I'd work my bus route, then drive to therapy, sleep in the waiting room, drive home. We had Marcus, 8 years old when he came to us. Couldn't read, couldn't write, had cigarette burns on his back from his biological father. Woke up screaming every single night for 2 years. I'd go into his room, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, sit on the edge of his bed, hold his hand, tell him, "You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you here. I promise." Over and over, until he believed me. We had Jennifer, fetal alcohol syndrome. Sweet girl. Couldn't control her impulses. Would run into traffic. We put locks on every door. Slept in shifts. Betty would watch her during the day. I'd watch her at night after my route. I was tired. Lord, I was tired. There were days I drove that bus and I could barely keep my eyes open. Days I missed work because one of the kids was in the hospital. Days I didn't know how we were going to pay the electric bill. But then Sarah took her first step. At age 14, we all cried, and Marcus learned to read, stayed up till midnight practicing with Betty, graduated high school, went to community college, became a teacher. He teaches special education now. And Jennifer, she lives in a group home now, but every Sunday she calls me. "Hi, Daddy," she says. And she tells me about her week. And she's safe. And she's loved. So yeah, it was hard, but it was worth it. Every single sleepless night was worth it. Over 37 years, Betty and I fostered 70 children. Some stayed for a few months, some stayed until they turned 18. 12 of them we legally adopted. The others, well, they were still our kids. Still are. People ask me, "Harold, how do you do it? How do you love that many kids?" And I tell them, it's not hard to love a child. What's hard is watching society decide some children aren't worth loving. These kids, they weren't broken. They were hurt. There's a difference. You can heal hurt. But first, someone has to care enough to try. I drove that bus for 37 years. You know how many of my foster kids rode it? Almost all of them. Some people thought it was embarrassing, having your dad drive the bus. But my kids, they'd run up those steps every morning, give me a hug, say, "Love you, Dad," right in front of everybody. They weren't ashamed of me, and I was never ashamed of them. Today, those 70 kids, they're teachers, nurses, mechanics, stay-at-home parents, veterans, social workers. One's a doctor, one's in prison. I visit him every month. One died of cancer at 23. I held his hand when he passed. They've given me 140 grandchildren and 38 great-grandchildren so far. Every Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. Our house, well, now it's a community center. It's packed. Kids everywhere. Noise everywhere. Love everywhere. Betty passed in 2019. Cancer. But before she went, she looked at me and said, "Harold, we did good, didn't we?" And I said, "Baby, we did better than good. We changed the world, one kid at a time." I'm 84 years old now. I don't drive the bus anymore. My hands shake too much, but I still get letters, calls, visits, kids telling me about their lives, thanking me. And you know what I tell them? I say, "Don't thank me. Thank God you didn't give up on yourself. Thank God you fought. Thank God you survived." Because here's what I learned. Every child is somebody's miracle. Every single one. That kid with Down syndrome, that's somebody's miracle. That kid who can't sit still, somebody's miracle. That kid everybody calls too much work, miracle. Society throws away miracles because they don't look like the miracles we expected. They're messy. They're expensive. They're inconvenient. But I'm a bus driver who made minimum wage, and I became father to 70 miracles. If I can do it, anybody can. You don't need money. You don't need a big house. You don't need to be special. You just need to show up. You just need to say, "I see you. You matter. You're worth it." There are kids right now sitting in foster homes, in group homes, in the system, thinking nobody wants them, thinking they're not good enough, thinking the world gave up on them. And I'm here to tell you, they're wrong. They're not unwanted. They're just waiting for someone like you, someone like me, someone ordinary who decides to do something extraordinary. Love doesn't require a degree. Love doesn't require wealth. Love just requires willingness. Be willing. My name is Harold. I drove a school bus. I earned minimum wage. I lived in a 2-bedroom house. But I became father to 70 children that the world said weren't worth the trouble. And I'm the richest man I know. If this story is touching you, I'd love to know in the comments. Thank you for listening to my story.